flat area at the top of the hill. And then he said, now, this is how you stop, because I can notice you don't know how to stop. You point your toes together. It's called snow plowing. It slows you down. I said, okay. Snow plowing, putting my tips here. He said, but don't cross the tips or you'll crash. I said, that doesn't sound too easy. You put them together, but don't cross the tips. He said, well, the other way to do it is to go sideways. You got to go sideways. Here, watch this. And he just went down this very high slope, very, very steep slope. He went down maybe, I would say, about the length of a football field, and then went throwing up snow everywhere, and he stopped right there in the middle of that hill. And he looked up at me and said, do that! And I said, it's really steep! It looks like I'm going to go straight down. He goes, well, you got to go side to side to keep yourself going slowly. Otherwise, you go too fast. So don't go straight. Just go angle this way, and then turn that way, and then that way. He's saying that, looking up at me. This way, then that way. Well, I looked down, and I said, okay. I stopped looking straight down the hill and looked kind of crookedy. And I said, that does look a little less steep now, because I'm going down at a different angle. But over there is this red picket fence, and wooden fence that they use to hold snow back, that also keeps the skiers from running into trees. I'm aiming now at that. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a long ways away. All I have to do is turn before I get there. And then go that way. And there's another one, 100 yards that way, another fence that way. So I push off, and I'm telling you, almost instantaneously I'm going fast. I'm going very, very fast. And I'm just like going right at the fence, and I'm freaking out because I'm saying, turn, turn. It's not turning, not turning. And sure enough, at the very last second, I just said, forget it, bailed out, which means I wiped out. Boom, just wiped out in the snow, just a few feet from the fence. And Matt Brenner skis over. He goes, that was great, you're doing good. Now, you know what? Sometimes you need encouragement. When you start to follow Jesus, at first, you might fall sometimes. Is that true? Every now and then when you start to follow Jesus, you fail. Epic failure. If you were a video game, that would come across the screen right there. Epic failure. When you're trying to follow Jesus. But what you really need is encouragement. Right? And Matt was smiling really big. He was proud of what I'd accomplished, even though I was terrified. I had just taken some baby steps into a whole new world, let me tell you, because I'd never gone that fast. Not even on a bicycle. Certainly, maybe just barely in a car. But it went really fast, with nothing but two little slabs of wood, two pieces of wood on the bottom of my feet, and flying along a mountain. And the only way I could stop was to just bail out and crash. And he says, great job. Now do it again. Point the other way. Go that. I did. I went ahead. All right. And he watched me go this time. And sure enough, as I got towards the other side of the whole mountain, there's another area with the thing that protects you from hitting the trees. And I wiped out just before that fence, and Matt had pushed off, followed me back, just pulled up, his perfect stop. And Matt looks at me and says, you did good again. Now it's not as steep from this point out. See if you can work on that turning more before you get to the fence. And sure enough, I tried to do that. And sure enough, I was actually able to slow down. Now I wasn't taking off quite so fast. I was able to turn little bit by little bit, little bit by little bit. And even at the very end, I got to try the snow plow, which didn't work out so good. Because sure enough, as soon as I put my tips towards each other, they just collapsed down. Kind of like they stop and I go. It's like that. Boom. Flat on my face. So all these other people that are going down the real mountain, by then they usually know how to ski. So it's very unusual to see a buddy skier come down and wipe out like that. But that was me. And you know what? There's another lesson I learned is sometimes when you try and do something adventurous, you fail time and time and time again. But you still keep doing it. Isn't that true? And when Jesus, He calls us. And sometimes we have epic failure. But He says, Good job. Keep going. You can do it. Get back up. Try again. And then we do it again and again and again. And we fail again and again and again. And then we get to the end of the slope. And you realize, you know what? That was not easy. But it was kind of fun. You see, if life were all easy, if it was all flat, can you imagine trying to go snow skiing on totally flat ground? No hills, no ups, no downs. You just put your skis there, maybe push yourself, whee, 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 whee. A few feet at a time, getting nowhere. No speed, just total boredom. Now some people might say that's what cross-country skiing is, but I don't think so. So cross-country skiing is actually some hills and some ups and downs. But you know what? Downhill skiing was fun. It just wasn't that I was very good at it. And you know what? Following Jesus is fun. It's just not always easy at the beginning. In fact, it may never get easy. But I'll tell you this, I got back in that chairlift and went back to the top of that mountain, and I went down it again, and I got better. And I did it again and again and again until I could get all the way from the top to the bottom without wiping out. By the end of the day, I was already accomplishing being a pretty good skier, and I was enjoying it more and more, and I was falling down so often. You see, when Matt Brenner called me to ski from a big mountain, it was scary. But I went and tried it. And the more I tried it, the better I got at it. Till the failures became less. And the fun became greater. When Jesus came and called these disciples by the Sea of Galilee, he called them to follow him. Now they didn't know where he was leading, but he was going to a place called Calvary, where he was going to die on a cross. He was saying, come, follow me. I will make you fishers of men. You're going to be casting out your nets and gathering men. Now that imagery can put all kinds of things in your mind. I don't even know what they really thought that meant. But it means they're going out there and they're catching people. Basically, more followers for Jesus. And you know what? That adventure might have sounded a little scary to them at first. And they probably were epic failures oftentimes at the beginning. And if you read the stories of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you're going to see that. There's so many times the disciples just didn't get it. Jesus would teach them something, and they would just go, what does that mean? Or they just go do the opposite. But you see, when Jesus calls us, he calls us to a great adventure of following him. And we get better and better at it. We fall less and less. And in the very, very end, we follow him even to the cross. Now in Luke chapter 14, it says, if anyone would follow me, they must take up their cross and follow me. If anyone would be my disciple, they must take up their cross and follow me. Luke chapter 14. Now think about that for a moment. Does that sound very inviting? It's one thing to say I'm going to go up to the top of the mountain and ski, but it's something altogether different when Jesus says, come pick up a cross, an object to be killed upon, drag it with you to your death, following Jesus. But I'll tell you what I've discovered, and this is my testimony, it is more joy in following Jesus, carrying my cross along with him, right behind him. There's a lot more joy in that than ever there was cutting meat in a grocery store. And if I would have stayed in that grocery store and said, I don't care what Jesus is calling me to do, I'm going to stay here and be comfortable. I might have been able to stay a Christian, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, I would not have been a fulfilled Christian. You see, when Jesus calls us, he might call us to do things we never believed we could do. I never thought I could become a good skier. I thought it would take months and years of practice, and I knew that was going to be one of only a few times in my life I would ever go skiing. In fact, I have not been snow skiing since 1991, when I did it that year. But I enjoyed it. But I didn't think I would. But you know what? Jesus says, come follow me. And it sounds scary and it looks dangerous, but guess what? It's more fulfilling. There's more joy in it than you ever imagined. So my challenge today is when Jesus comes to you and says, come follow me, Craig. Come follow me, Lisa. Come follow me, Erica. What do you say to him? Do you just say, no, that's fine. I'll just stay here and mend my nets. I'll just stay here and fish. I like fishing. Or do you just leave everything and follow him? Because you see, either we can go on the adventure with Jesus or we can stay in the humdrum day-to-day world that they were living in. Now think what happened to common fishermen. You had guys, Peter. You had Andrew, his brother. You had John. And you had James. They were later called the sons of thunder because they spoke so strongly. These were just common fishermen. But after they followed Jesus, they became what? Not only disciples, they became powerful disciples. Peter was the leader of a church. John, leaders in their church. They became missionaries that went around the world and traveled and spoke. Yes, catching more men for Jesus. Do you think that they, when they were little kids, they dreamed about going and seeing the whole world? Traveling and everybody following them in crowds? Do you think that they had ever thought that they would see a person raised from the dead? Do you think that they would ever imagine seeing the sick being made well, the blind being made to see? Do you think they ever imagined in their whole lives that they would get to see so much, so many miracles? The stilling of the storm, the catching of the fish, the feeding of the multitudes. They could have just stayed in their boats. They could have just stayed with their fishing and fished. But they didn't. And because they didn't, they got to see miracle after miracle after miracle. And they became participants in the miracle. And later on, they became the leaders of the church. And yes, God did miracles through them. But if we say no when Jesus calls us, we say, no, that's fine, I'll stay right where I'm at, this is comfortable, I like what I'm doing, we're going to miss out. That's all I can tell you for sure is we're going to miss out. Because you know what? I've been on a great adventure with Jesus for a lot of years now. I'm getting better at it. I fall less. But there's still struggles. It's still difficult. Staying in those skis is not easy. But you know what? It's a beautiful adventure. And my challenge to you today is, do you want to go on the adventure? Do you want to go where Jesus wants you to go? Or are you going to be happy with where you're at? Because there's everybody here, everybody in the world, that is even not here. They're being called by Jesus. They're being called by Jesus to something greater than they can even imagine. And they don't even know what that thing is. But they have to be able to say yes. And follow him. Do you think they will? Do you think you will? Will you follow Jesus where he calls you? That's the important thing.